You have 10 minutes. Security will watch you pack. Don't touch any company files. Don't talk to anyone on your way out. Two security guards stood behind her. Her badge was already gone. She could still feel the phantom weight of it missing from her lanyard. Her hands were empty. She looked at the office she had worked in for 4 years. The desk with the photo of her son. The whiteboard still covered in her handwriting from yesterday's planning session. The coffee mug her boy made at summer camp. The one with the wobbly handle and the word Mom painted in blue. She didn't argue, she didn't cry, she didn't ask why. She just looked at two security guards who wouldn't meet her eyes and walked to her desk, packed in 7 minutes, not 10. She didn't need 10. She took the photo. She took the mug. She left everything else. She sat in her car holding that ceramic mug in both hands. Engine off, windows up. She didn't recognize herself in the rearview mirror. Let me go back. Let me tell you how she ended up there. Because in some ways, that mug was the only thing she had left. Her name was Maren Cole, 35 years old, single mother. Her son Jude was 8, gap-toothed smile, carried a worn-out notebook everywhere because he wanted to be an inventor like Mom. Maren's husband Theo died of pancreatic cancer when Jude was 4. The medical bills consumed everything. Savings, the house equity, the small life insurance policy. She was left with $90,000 in medical debt and a child who still sometimes asked when Daddy was coming home from the hospital. Maren was a senior systems architect at Vector Solutions, a logistics technology company that built routing software for shipping and freight companies. In plain terms, she designed the brain of a system that told trucks where to go, when to go there, and how to get there using the least fuel and the least time. But she didn't just work on the algorithm. She built it, from nothing. She spent 8 months writing the foundational code for a proprietary system she called Pathline, built on research she had been developing since graduate school. Mathematical models for dynamic route optimization that existed years before Vector even knew her name. Before Maren, Vector had 12 clients. After Pathline launched, they grew to over 200 in 3 years. The algorithm saved clients millions. It made Vector the fastest-growing logistics tech company in the region. But Maren needed this job. Not wanted, needed. $62,000 still outstanding in medical debt. Jude's school near the office. Health insurance that covered his monthly allergy treatments. She couldn't afford a gap in coverage. She couldn't afford to start over. So she showed up every day and did extraordinary work and accepted whatever they gave her, because the alternative was worse. She used to tell Jude their life was like one of his inventions, a little messy, a little held together with tape, but it worked, and as long as it worked they were fine. It worked until it didn't. His name was Derek Hale, 48, new CEO brought in 18 months ago by Vector's investors, previously ran a division at a larger company, got the job because he spoke the language investors wanted to hear, growth metrics, scalability, exit strategy, words that sound impressive in boardrooms but mean nothing in the server room where the actual work happens. Derek drove a car that cost more than Maren's annual salary. He called the engineering team the back office. He once interrupted Maren's technical presentation to investors to say what Maren is trying to say is that our platform is best in class, then spent 10 minutes rephrasing everything she had already explained, less accurately. He took credit systematically, every investor meeting, every board presentation, every press interview. It was always our proprietary algorithm. The system I commissioned when I saw the opportunity, never Maren's name, never the team built this. When she asked to leave early for Jude's school play, he said, "We're not running a daycare, Maren." When she suggested presenting at a conference, he said, "Let's have someone more polished handle the public-facing stuff." When she asked about bonuses tied to Pathline's performance, he said bonuses are for leadership. You're an engineer. You get a salary. That's your bonus. Maren smiled every time. Okay, she would say. Understood. What else could she say? She had a son who needed insurance and a debt collector who called every month. So she smiled and went back to her desk and kept building the thing that was making him rich. 6 months before the firing, Derek announced that a major corporation called Meridian Global Logistics was interested in acquiring Vector, the acquisition price being discussed, north of $300 million. The reason Meridian wanted Vector was one thing: Pathline, Marin's algorithm. Derek framed this as his achievement. My strategy of investing in proprietary technology is paying off. This is what vision looks like. Marin was asked to prepare technical documentation for Meridian's due diligence team. She spent 3 months creating detailed system architecture documents, performance reports, technical specifications. She worked weekends. She missed Jude's soccer games. She ate dinner at her desk. During the process, she noticed something. Derek was keeping her away from direct conversations with Meridian. Every question was routed through his office. Her name didn't appear on any external documents. She asked about it once. His response: acquisitions are a leadership function, Marin. Let me handle the business side. Meanwhile, Jude started acting out at school. His teacher called. He says you're never home anymore. He drew a picture in class today. It was just an empty chair at a dinner table. Marin promised him camping, their tradition. Just 1 more week, buddy. Then it's you and me and the woods. Jude looked at her and said, you always say 1 more week, Mom. She flinched because he was right. She finished the documentation on a Thursday, 200 pages about a system she built with her own hands. She thought things would slow down, that she would get to breathe. She was wrong. Monday morning, Marin arrived at work. Her badge worked at the front door, but when she reached her floor, the elevator didn't respond to her card. She had to call reception. A security guard met her, walked her to Derek's office. She passed her team on the way. They were quiet. Something was wrong. Derek was behind his desk. 2 HR people she had never seen sat on the couch, legal folders on the table. Marin, sit down. We're restructuring the engineering division. Your position has been eliminated, effective immediately. You have 10 minutes to collect personal items. Security will escort you. Surrender your laptop and access credentials. She asked the only question that mattered: why? It's a business decision, nothing personal. Nothing personal. The woman who built the technology about to sell for $300 million. Nothing personal. They slid a folder toward her. Severance offer, 4 weeks' pay, a non-disparagement clause, a general release. If she signed, she gave up the right to make any legal claims against Vector, ever. We'd like you to sign before you leave today. It simplifies the process. Marin looked at the release form. She didn't sign. She put the folder in her bag. I'll review this at home. Derek's jaw tightened. We'd really prefer to handle this today, Marin. And I'd really prefer not to be fired on a Monday morning with security guards standing behind me. But here we are. It was the first time she had ever talked back to him. She didn't wait for his response. She stood up and walked to her desk. 7 minutes, photo, mug, a small cactus Jude gave her for Mother's Day. Because you're tough like a cactus, Mom. She left everything else. Preeti mouthed sorry. Quan stood up like he wanted to say something, then sat back down. He had a family too. Glass door, badge face down, parking lot, sunlight too bright, car, mug in both hands, engine off. That evening, Marin sat at the kitchen table after Jude went to bed. She looked at the severance offer, 4 weeks' pay, for 4 years of work, for building a technology worth hundreds of millions, 4 weeks. She calculated 1 month of rent, half of Jude's medical expenses, nothing toward the debt, health insurance ending in 30 days. After that, his allergy treatments came out of pocket, $800 a month. She opened her laptop, started looking for jobs, but it was 2024 in tech. Layoffs everywhere, hundreds of applicants for every position, her age, her single-parent status, the gap about to appear on her resume. She could already feel the rejections coming. Her sister Nadia called. Are you okay? What happened? They eliminated my position. After everything you built for them. That's insane. Can they do that? They just did. The next morning Jude came downstairs, saw Marin at the table instead of already gone. You're still here. I'm taking some time off work, buddy. His face lit up. So you can come to my soccer game on Wednesday. She almost broke. Almost. Yeah, I'll be at your soccer game. And camping. Can we go camping? Soon, I promise. He grabbed his backpack, then stopped at the door and turned around. Mom, I'm glad you're taking time off. You always look tired. The door closed. She sat at the table and put her head in her hands. 2 weeks after the firing, 14 days until her insurance lapsed, 32 applications, 2 callbacks, no offers. Then she saw something. A press release from Meridian Global Logistics. Meridian announces acquisition of Vector Solutions for $340 million. Derek was quoted, "This acquisition represents the culmination of my vision for proprietary logistics technology." His vision. The press release highlighted Pathline as the core proprietary asset driving the acquisition value. Independent valuation placed Pathline's contribution at approximately 40% of the total price. 40% of $340 million. That's $136 million for a system she built, from code she wrote, based on research she started in graduate school. And she got 4 weeks severance. That night she couldn't sleep. She got up at 2 in the morning and did something she hadn't done since she was hired. She read her employment contract, all 18 pages. She almost missed it. Page 11. Section 7.3. Intellectual property assignment. Standard language. Everything created during employment belongs to the company. But there was a subclause. Section 7.3b. Pre-existing intellectual property. It stated that any intellectual property developed by the employee prior to the effective date of the agreement, as listed in Exhibit C, shall remain the property of the employee. The company is granted a non-exclusive license to use such pre-existing IP during the term of employment. This license terminates upon the end of the employment relationship. Exhibit C she flipped to the back. There it was, a list she filled out when she was hired. Item 1. Dynamic Route Optimization Framework, Mathematical Models and Foundational Code for Real-Time Logistics Routing. Developed 2017 through 2020. That was Pathline, not all of it, but the foundation, the mathematical models, the core architecture, the thing that makes it work. The license terminated when they fired her. They kept using it, then they sold it. She sat on the edge of her bed holding that contract, her heart beating so fast she could feel it in her throat. She read Section 7.3b 4 more times, then Exhibit C, then the termination clause again. They made a mistake, a massive catastrophic mistake, and they didn't even know it. Margaret Chen, 67 years old, Marin's former graduate school advisor, semi-retired but still practicing IP law part-time, small firm, just her and a paralegal, white hair she kept in a sharp bob, reading glasses she pushed up her nose when she was thinking, desk covered in papers and exactly one framed photo, her late wife Elena. Marin hadn't spoken to Margaret in 2 years, but Margaret was the one who encouraged her research. The one who said, "This is brilliant, Marin. Protect it. Always protect your original work." Marin drove 40 minutes to Margaret's office with a folder containing her employment contract. Exhibit C, the press release. 3 USB drives. Margaret listened without interrupting. When Marin finished, Margaret took off her glasses, set them on the desk, said one sentence. "They sold your work without a license." "Is that actually what happened?" "Let me see the contract." Margaret read Section 7.3b, read Exhibit C, read the termination letter, read the press release, then looked up. "When they fired you, the license to your pre-existing IP terminated automatically. Every day since your termination that they've operated Pathline, they've been using your intellectual property without authorization. And when they sold that IP to Meridian as part of the acquisition, they sold something they didn't own. What does that mean? It means Meridian just paid $340 million for a company whose core technology is built on intellectual property that belongs to you, and neither of them had permission to use it. But they'll say, I built Pathline at Vector. You built on your pre-existing framework, at Vector, using Vector's resources. That gives them rights to the additions, but the foundation, the mathematical models, the core architecture, that's Exhibit C, that's yours. Without it, their modifications are useless. It's like building a house on someone else's land. You can own the house, but if you don't own the land, you've got a problem. Silence. How big a problem? Margaret smiled. Not warm exactly, something sharper. A $47 million problem, minimum. Over the next 6 weeks, Maren and Margaret built the case. Maren provided everything. Original research files from graduate school time-stamped years before she joined Vector. Development logs showing how Pathline was built on her pre-existing framework. Emails where she explained her original models to the team. A conference paper she published in 2019 describing the mathematical approach, 2 years before Vector hired her. Margaret brought in a forensic code analyst. His finding, approximately 60% of Pathline's core functionality was directly derived from the models and code listed in Exhibit C. The other 40% was enhancement and application, built at Vector, owned by Vector. But without the 60, the 40 didn't work. Then a former colleague reached out, Preeti, the junior developer who mouthed sorry on firing day. She was horrified by what happened. She provided internal communications showing Derek was specifically advised by his own legal team to review Maren's IP assignment clause before the acquisition. An email from Vector's in-house counsel dated 3 months before the firing. We should clarify the status of pre-existing IP listed in Exhibit C before proceeding with the Meridian transaction. Derek's response, don't waste time on minor HR details. Focus on closing the deal. He knew, or at least he was warned, and he ignored it. During the case preparation, Maren's money ran out. She had to ask Nadia for a loan to cover Jude's medical expenses. The humiliation burned. She had promised herself after Theo died that she would never need anyone's help again. Jude noticed she was stressed. Mom, are you worried about something? A little bit, buddy, but I'm working on it. Is it like when Dad was sick? That kind of worried. Her heart cracked. No, baby, it's a different kind of worried. This kind I can fix. Promise. Promise. She meant it this time. Before I go on, I want to pause and say something to you. Thank you for being here. I know this is a lot to take in. These stories, they're hard to live through and sometimes they're hard to listen to. But you're still here. And that means something to me. Wherever you are right now. On your commute. Doing dishes. Lying in bed at the end of a long day. Thank you. I don't take that for granted. Okay, let me tell you what happened next. Margaret laid it out clearly. We can send a cease and desist letter. That's the quiet option. They'd negotiate a license. You'd get a settlement. A few $100,000, maybe $1 million. Oh. Or we file suit. Against Vector and against Meridian. For unauthorized use and sale of your intellectual property. We claim damages based on the fair market value of your IP's contribution to the acquisition plus statutory damages for willful infringement. How much? $47 million. Based on your IP constituting the core value proposition that drove a $340 million sale, discounted for enhancements made during employment, plus damages. The number felt abstract, impossible. Maren grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment. She clipped coupons. She drove a 12-year-old car. $47 million didn't belong in her vocabulary. Will they settle? Eventually, but first they'll try to bury you. They'll have expensive lawyers. They'll claim you signed away your IP. They'll say Exhibit C doesn't cover what you think it covers. They'll try to prove Pathline is entirely their work. They'll be aggressive. Are they right? Can they prove that? No, because they'd be lying, and you have the evidence to prove it. Maren took a breath. File it. The lawsuit was filed on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, Maren's phone was ringing. First call, Vector's legal team. She didn't answer. Second call, Derek's personal cell. She didn't answer. Third call, an attorney from Meridian's legal department. She didn't answer. Margaret took the calls. Derek called Margaret's office. Margaret put him on speaker. Maren sat across the desk, hands folded, listening. This is Derek Hale. Who exactly are you? I'm Margaret Chen. I represent Maren Cole. This lawsuit is absurd. Maren was an employee. Everything she built belongs to Vector. She signed an IP assignment agreement. She did. Section 7.3 assigns work product created during employment. We don't dispute that. But Section 7.3b carves out pre-existing intellectual property listed in Exhibit C. Your client's foundational work predates her employment by 3 years. It's listed in Exhibit C. It's her property. The license terminated when you fired her. Silence. That's a technicality. It's a contract clause, one your own legal counsel flagged before the acquisition. I have the email. Do you want me to read it to you? Longer silence. What do you want? Fair compensation for the unauthorized use and sale of her intellectual property. How much? $47 million. That's insane. She was an engineer making a salary. She didn't build the company. She built the technology that made the company worth $340 million. Your own press release says Pathline is the core proprietary asset. Your own valuation shows it drives 40% of the acquisition value. And she owns the foundation it's built on. You sold someone else's property, Mr. Hale. That's not a technicality. That's a problem. This will never hold up in court. Then I'll see you there. Margaret hung up, looked at Maren. He's scared. How do you know? Because he called personally instead of having his lawyers call. He wanted to make it go away before anyone important finds out. Too late for that. Yes, it is. Vector hired one of the most expensive law firms in the country. They filed a motion to dismiss. They claimed Exhibit C was vague. They claimed Pathline was built entirely at Vector. They called Maren a disgruntled former employee seeking to extort her previous employer. Derek started a whisper campaign, told people in the industry Maren was fired for performance issues, that she was unstable, that she was making fraudulent claims. Maren heard about it from former colleagues. It strung, but Margaret warned her. They'll try to make it about you, your character, your mental state, anything to distract from the evidence. Don't react, don't respond, don't give them anything to use. But then things got interesting. Meridian had paid $340 million for Vector. If Maren's claim was valid, they had just bought a company whose most valuable asset had a fatal legal flaw. Derek never disclosed it during due diligence. Meridian's legal team pulled the acquisition documents, reviewed the IP assignment records, found the clause, found the exhibit, found the email from Derek's own counsel, found his dismissal of it. Their reaction was apparently volcanic. They weren't just angry at Maren, they were angry at Derek. Meridian contacted Margaret directly, not to fight, to talk. We may have shared interests, the lead attorney said. Meridian's position was clear. They needed Pathline to work. If Maren's pre-existing IP was pulled from the system, Pathline collapsed, and their $340 million investment became worthless. But they weren't angry at Maren. They were angry at Derek, who failed to disclose the risk. They were considering their own lawsuit against him. The mediation room, a conference room in a downtown hotel, neutral ground, Margaret and Maren on one side, Derek and his 3 attorneys on the other, Meridian's team at the head. Maren described walking in. Derek was already there. He looked smaller than she remembered, or maybe she just felt bigger. He was wearing one of his expensive suits, but it didn't fit the same way, like the confidence had been washed out of it. He looked at her once, then looked away. He didn't say hello. Meridian's attorney laid out the situation. The IP issue was real. Their analysts confirmed it. Pathlen's core architecture was built on Marin's pre-existing work. Derek's attorney tried one more time. Our position remains that Ms. Cole's pre-existing work was substantially modified during employment, making it joint work product. Margaret interrupted. Then explain why the mathematical models in Pathlen's routing engine are identical, not similar, identical, to the models in my client's 2019 published research paper, written 3 years before she ever heard of vector solutions. We have the forensic analysis. We have the original code files with timestamps. We have her graduate research committee's review. Would you like to see any of it? Silence. We also have the internal email from your own legal counsel warning Mr. Hale to review the IP assignment clause before proceeding, and his response dismissing it as minor HR details. Would you like to see that email? Derek's attorney leaned over and whispered something. Derek's face went white. We'd like to take a break. Take your time. When they came back, Derek's team offered $3 million. Final. Take it or leave it. Margaret didn't even look at Marin. No. Then what do you want? What we filed for, $47 million, or we go to trial. And in a trial, everything becomes public. The email, the termination, the fact that Mr. Hale was warned and ignored it. Every industry publication will cover it. Every potential client will read about it. Every investor will ask questions. She paused. 47 million is the quiet number. The trial number will be higher. Meridian's attorney spoke. We'd like to speak with Ms. Cole's counsel privately. Meridian made Marin an offer directly, not 47 million from Derek. Derek didn't have 47 million. Instead, a structured resolution. Meridian pays Marin 47 million as a licensing and settlement fee for ongoing use of her pre-existing IP in Pathline. Marin retains ownership of her foundational intellectual property. Meridian receives a permanent, irrevocable license to use it, meaning Pathline continues operating. Marin is offered a 3-year consulting contract paid quarterly to ensure the technology develops properly. In exchange, Marin drops the suit. No trial, no public spectacle. She looked at Margaret. Margaret nodded once. I accept. Meridian then turned to Derek. He sold them a company with a known IP defect he failed to disclose. Their lawsuit was filed 3 weeks later. Derek was removed from any role. His payout from the acquisition was frozen. Industry headlines followed. Former Vector CEO faces legal action over undisclosed IP dispute. How a $340 million acquisition almost collapsed over an overlooked contract clause. His reputation crumbled, not because Marin destroyed it, because his own choices caught up with him. She didn't call him, didn't send a message, didn't say I told you so. He did this to himself. She just stopped being the person who cleaned up after his mistakes. Marin walked through her front door that evening. Jude was doing homework at the kitchen table. He looked up. How was your day, Mom? It was a big day, buddy. Good big or bad big? Good big, really good big. Cool, can we get pizza? She laughed. For the first time in months, she laughed, and it didn't feel forced. Yeah, we can get pizza. That weekend they went camping. The trip she promised. The one that kept getting delayed. They sat by a fire and Jude roasted marshmallows and told her about his latest invention idea. A backpack with a built-in umbrella. Mom, are you still worried? No, baby, not anymore. Because you fixed it, the thing that was worrying you. Yeah, I fixed it. He nodded seriously. I knew you would. You fix everything. Not everything, she said, but the important stuff. 6 months later, Marin used part of the settlement to do something she never imagined. She started her own company. A consulting firm helping small logistics companies optimize their routing, using her own technology, her technology, the one she built, the one that had always been hers. She hired 3 people, then 6, then 12. One of them was Preeti, the developer who mouthed sorry on firing day. Another was Kwan, the senior developer who stood up like he wanted to say something. Now he was saying it, every day. Margaret became an advisor, not officially. She said she was retired, but she called every Thursday to check in, just making sure you're protecting your work. It was their joke, except it wasn't really a joke. Jude told his class about his mom's company for a school project. His teacher sent Marin a photo of his presentation. The title slide written in 8-year-old handwriting. My mom's company, she fixes things. Marin framed it, hung it next to her desk, right beside the photo from Vector and the cactus that survived everything. A year later, Marin was at an industry conference, presenting a keynote. Her first public talk since Vector, the topic, the value of what you build. After the presentation, a man approached her, mid-50s, tired eyes, cheaper suit than she remembered. Marin. She recognized him immediately. Derek. He looked like he wanted to say something practiced, something rehearsed, but what came out was simpler. I made a mistake. She looked at him for a long moment, not with anger, not with satisfaction, just clarity. You made a lot of them. He nodded, opened his mouth like he was going to say more, then closed it, turned around, walked away. She watched him go, felt nothing, not triumph, not pity, nothing. That was the moment she knew she was free, not because he admitted it, but because she didn't need him to. People ask her sometimes if the lawsuit was worth it, if she would do it again, if she feels guilty. The answer is the same every time. She doesn't feel guilty for owning what she built. She doesn't feel guilty for reading a contract she signed and understanding what it said. She doesn't feel guilty for standing up for herself when someone threw her away and kept what was hers. She didn't sue because she wanted revenge. She sued because her work had value, and someone took it without asking. Margaret taught her something she'll never forget. The world is full of people who will use what you build and then pretend you never existed. Your job isn't to stop them from trying. Your job is to make sure you have the receipts. Jude is 9 now, still carrying that notebook everywhere. Last week he showed her his latest design, a lunchbox that keeps things cold on one side and warm on the other. Patent pending, he wrote at the top, with a little copyright symbol drawn in crayon. She asked where he learned about patents. From you, Mom. You always say protect your work. Maybe that's the most important thing she ever built. Not an algorithm, not a company, not a lawsuit. A kid who knows that what he creates matters. A kid who knows his work has value. A kid who will never let someone take it without a fight. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a lawsuit. It's becoming someone who never needs to file one again. Sometimes the best revenge is knowing your own worth. Thank you for listening to this all the way through. It means more than you know. If this story reminded you that your work matters, that what you build has value even when the people around you don't see it, then do me one favor. Hit that like button. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what part of this story stayed with you. And if you want to hear more stories about people who refused to disappear when the world wanted to erase them, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.